much, we're also throwing less away. And as a result, landfill sites in the region are filling up more slowly. In Basildon, that means plans to turn an old landfill tip into a country park by 2015 are in doubt because the site just won't be ready.
Another load rumbles into the landfill site at Pitsea. In the distance, the mountain of rubbish is growing, but this rotting Everest isn't expanding as fast as predicted.
It all comes down to the two R's, the recession and recycling. Because of those two things, less and less rubbish is being dumped at landfill sites like this one.
When Pitsea's full, it'll be landscaped and become part of Wat Tyler Country Park, which is right next door.
It's not the best thing at the moment, but I suppose if it's, covered, you probably won't even realise it's there eventually.
But because the dump's not filling up as fast at the council offices in Basildon, they're worried the landscaping plan may have to be delayed, and that's bad news.
Because the more stuff we get in there, the quicker we can have our country park. Pitsea's suffered enough now through the tip, and we want the country park because it'll be nice for the residents. No more smells.
So the county council's going to keep the tip open for longer to encourage people to dump more rubbish there. So eventually it will look less like this and more like this. Gareth George, BBC Look East.
300 water voles are going to a new home in Essex. The animals are being relocated from the Thames Gateway development. They're being released over the next few weeks.
With lush green vegetation, the River Colne is already teeming with wildlife. But now some new residents are moving in. They've made a 50-mile journey from the Thames estuary, a far cry from the environment they're now being introduced to.
These are tough little urban voles, really, from the Thames. They've been used to sort of slow-flowing or very still water, in fact, but some of it quite polluted. And they're coming here to a river which is, beautiful habitat, lots of vegetation, very fresh, clean water.
The development of the deep-sea container port in the Thames estuary has meant all sorts of wildlife has had to be removed. The project has meant clearing a 1,500-acre site.
We've got great crested newts, we've got water voles, we've got all the reptile species, so we've got adders, we've got grass snakes, we've got common lizards and slow worms as well, and we're looking at about 100,000 animals that have to be relocated over the next year.
Water voles are all but extinct in this area, so the 300 being released here will help repopulate the river. Carefully weighed, they're then released into a ready-made pen, complete with food and bedding.
The base of the pen doesn't have anything on it, so she's got to burrow down to get out.
The Woodland Trust has a 500-acre nature reserve here, and we've been working towards creating 200 acres of new grassland along the river Colne. And then out of the blue, these water voles came looking for a home, and we've been creating an ideal habitat for them.
It'll take a few days for the voles to get their bearings and explore their new surroundings. After that, it's hoped Ratty will be well and truly settled in to the country way of life. Felicity Simper, BBC Look East, Fordham.
A gardener in Essex believes she's cultivated a plant that's only found in the rainforests of Indonesia. Janice Wallace says she can't be sure, but she believes the plant is a corpse flower, named as such because of its almighty stench. The plant self-seeded 3 years ago.
You're watching Look East from the BBC.
We can go back now to our story about Armed Forces Day, when local communities are asked to show support for all the region's servicemen and women, past and present.
As members of the 1st Royal Tank Regiment from nearby RAF Honington assembled, crowds gathered at Thetford's Guildhall. Among them Carly, waiting to see her husband march past.
It's been a nightmare. Had my ups, had my downs, but the main priority was to support him when he was on the phone to me.
Behind the band, 120 members of D Squadron, back from Helmand, back to take the salute. The men spent 80% of their time living and fighting on the front line. They located almost 60 roadside bombs. Gunfights with insurgents were an almost daily event.
It was really quite hot up there with the fire coming down on us. A lot of the lads weren't used to what was happening with the amount of rounds and RPGs that were coming in. And Yeah, it's very intense, you know, but we got through it.
Tomorrow, communities across the region will mark Armed Forces Day. While many remember the sacrifices in Afghanistan, there's a sense among some older veterans that past conflicts are being forgotten. Reg Briggs from Peterborough served in the Korean War in the 1950s. He was just 17.
All you hear in the press today is Afghanistan. I mean, quite frankly, does people realise what these other conflicts went on and how terrible that they were? And when the war became static, more or less, it's like they said, it reverted back to the 1914-18 war. We're in dugouts for 2 years. That's difficult.
Such memories aren't easily erased. In Thetford, I caught up with Reg Wingfield, who survived a German bullet. How will you spend tomorrow?
I don't know. Just quietly thinking and remembering.
As will perhaps thousands of others. Alex Dunlop, BBC Look East, Thetford.
And a reminder of that website if you want to find out what's happening near you tomorrow. It's armedforcesday.org.uk, and then you click on events.
Now, we're nearing the end of the first week at Wimbledon, and there's just one Briton left standing. It's our worst performance in the tournament's history.
In the last 20 years, the Lawn Tennis Association has received around £500 million from Wimbledon to nurture